There's a moment in every life when you realize that freedom is not just about where you are, but about who you've become along the way. It's the moment when you understand that escape is only the beginning of the journey, and that the hardest part is not running away from something, but running toward yourself. Today, we're going to explore a story that asks one of the most profound questions a human being can face. What does it truly cost to become free? The book we're discussing is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, a novel that won the Pulitzer Prize and captured the hearts of readers around the world. Whitehead takes a piece of American history and transforms it into something both literal and deeply symbolic. He asks us to imagine the Underground Railroad not as a metaphor, but as an actual network of trains running beneath the soil, carrying people toward hope, toward danger, toward the unknown. But this isn't a history lesson. This is a story about what happens inside a person when they decide that survival isn't enough anymore, when they decide that living must mean something more than simply not dying. Let's begin with a girl named Cora. She's born into bondage on a Georgia plantation, and from her very first breath, her life belongs to someone else. Her mother abandons her when she's young, disappearing into the night without explanation, without goodbye. And Cora is left behind to face a world that sees her as property, not as a person. Now, abandonment is something many of us understand, even if we've never experienced it in such extreme circumstances. It's that feeling of being left to figure things out alone. It's the weight of realizing that no one is coming to save you, that if your life is going to change, you're the one who has to change it. Cora carries this weight every single day. She tends a small garden plot that once belonged to her mother, and she defends it fiercely. It's not much, just a few feet of earth, but it's hers. And in a life where nothing belongs to you, even a small plot of ground becomes sacred. This is where Whitehead shows us something essential about human nature. We all need something to call our own. A space, a dream, a sense of identity that no one can take from us. For some, it's a career they've built. For others, it's a relationship, a creative pursuit, or simply a quiet corner where they can think their own thoughts. We defend these things because they remind us that we exist, that we matter. But Cora's world is not built for her to matter. Every day is survival, every day is endurance, and for years she accepts this. She works, she suffers, she keeps her head down, until one day a young man named Caesar approaches her with an impossible idea. He wants to run, he wants to escape, and he wants her to come with him. Now, here's the thing about transformation. It rarely happens because we suddenly become brave. It happens because staying where we are becomes more unbearable than the fear of leaving. Cora doesn't run because she's fearless. She runs because she realizes that a life without possibility is not really a life at all. And so they run. Through swamps and forests, through darkness and terror. They make it to the Underground Railroad, and they descend into the earth, into tunnels that shouldn't exist but somehow do. They board a train that carries them north, toward states where slavery has different faces, different names, but still exists in ways both obvious and hidden. What Whitehead does so brilliantly here is show us that escape is not a single moment. It's a series of choices, each one harder than the last. Cora's journey takes her through South Carolina, where she finds a version of freedom that feels like progress but is actually a different kind of trap. She's given a job, a room, a new name. But beneath the surface, there are experiments being conducted, systems of control that masquerade as kindness. This resonates deeply with modern life, doesn't it? How many times have we found ourselves in situations that looked like freedom but were actually just prettier cages? A job that pays well but drains your soul. A relationship that feels safe but keeps you small. A life that looks successful from the outside but feels empty within. Cora keeps moving, she has to, because she's being hunted by a man named Ridgway, a slave catcher who sees her capture as a matter of personal pride. He's relentless, brutal, and he represents something we all face in different forms. He's the voice that says you don't deserve to be free, that you should go back to what you know, That change is too dangerous, too difficult, too unlikely to succeed. But Cora doesn't go back. Even when she's caught, even when she's imprisoned, even when every rational part of her mind tells her that hope is foolish, she continues to move towards something she can barely name. In North Carolina, she hides in an attic for months, watching the world through a small opening, unable to move freely, barely able to breathe. It's a different kind of prison, and yet she chooses it because it's a step away from the plantation. Because even limited freedom is better than none at all. There's something profound in this. Sometimes growth doesn't look like progress. Sometimes it looks like being stuck. Sometimes the journey toward ourselves requires us to be still, to wait, to endure periods where nothing seems to be changing. But beneath the surface, we're gathering strength. We're preparing for the next phase. Cora's time in that attic teaches her something crucial. She learns that freedom is not just about physical space. It's about mental space. It's about claiming your own thoughts, your own story, your own sense of who you are. Even when the world tries to define you, even when circumstances try to break you, there's a core self that remains. And this is what Whitehead wants us to understand. The Underground Railroad in this novel is more than a mode of transportation. It's a symbol of the internal journey we all must take. The journey from being shaped by our circumstances to becoming the person who shapes their own life. Every station Cora reaches presents her with a new challenge, a new version of America, a new test of her resolve. In some places she finds allies, in others she finds betrayal, but with each experience she becomes more herself, not because the journey makes her harder, but because it reveals what was always inside her: strength, resilience, an unshakable belief that she deserves to exist on her own terms. Now let's talk about why this book matters so much to readers today. On the surface, it's a story about slavery, about a specific historical horror that we must never forget. But on a deeper level, it's about the universal human struggle to break free from the things that bind us. We all have our own plantations, don't we? Our own systems that tell us we're not enough, that we should stay small, that we should accept less than we deserve. For some, it's internalized shame. For others, it's societal expectations. For many, it's fear disguised as practicality. And like Cora, we all face the choice. Do we stay in what's familiar, even if it's slowly killing us? Or do we step into the unknown, knowing that the journey will be hard, that we might not make it, that there are no guarantees? Whitehead doesn't sugarcoat this choice. Cora's journey is filled with loss. People die. Dreams are shattered. There are moments when freedom feels like a cruel joke, but she keeps going. Not because she's sure of the outcome, but because she's sure of the alternative. And here's what makes her story so powerful. She doesn't transform into someone unrecognizable. She doesn't become a superhero. She remains human, flawed, frightened, uncertain. But she also becomes someone who refuses to give up on herself. By the end of the novel, Cora has traveled through multiple states, multiple versions of what freedom could mean. She's been helped and hunted, saved and sold. And through it all, she's learned that freedom is not a destination. It's a way of being. It's the choice to keep moving forward, even when the path is unclear. There's a moment near the end when Cora faces yet another impossible decision, yet another test of her will to survive. And in that moment, she realizes something profound. She realizes that the girl who left the plantation is not the same person standing here now. That the journey has changed her in ways she couldn't have predicted. That she's become someone who knows her own worth, regardless of what the world says. This is the gift of Whitehead's novel. It reminds us that becoming free is not about reaching a perfect place where all struggles end. It's about claiming your right to exist fully, to think freely, to love deeply, to hurt honestly, to be completely and authentically yourself. It's about understanding that you were never meant to be small, that you were never meant to live in the shadow of other people's expectations, that your life is yours to shape, even when the circumstances are impossibly hard. In our own lives, we face this same choice every day. We face moments when we can either shrink back into what's safe or step forward into what's true. We face systems and voices that tell us to accept less, to be grateful for crumbs, to stop asking for more. But like Cora, we have the ability to keep moving, to keep questioning, to keep believing that there's something better waiting, not because it's guaranteed, but because we're willing to create it. The Underground Railroad is a story about the past, but it speaks directly to the present. It speaks to anyone who's ever felt trapped, anyone who's ever wondered if change is possible, anyone who's ever needed permission to want more from their life. And what Whitehead tells us through every page, through every station on Cora's journey, is that you don't need permission. You need courage. You need persistence. You need the willingness to believe in yourself even when the evidence suggests you shouldn't. This is not easy. Freedom never is, but it's worth it. Not because the destination is perfect, but because the journey makes you whole. So as we close this exploration, I want you to think about your own underground railroad. What are you moving away from? What are you moving toward? What small plot of ground are you defending because it reminds you that you matter? And more importantly, what would it mean to keep going, even when the path is unclear, even when the voices of doubt are loud, even when you're not sure where you'll end up? Cora's story reminds us that we don't need to have all the answers. We just need to take the next step, and then the one after that. And slowly, gradually, we become the person we were always meant to be. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing to Classic Books Explained for more timeless ideas.